99-cent rental.
This is 99 Cent Rental. I'm your host, Brian White, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Dave White. Hey, Dave, how you doing over there?
Oh, well, as you can see, I am now in a new apartment, officially. It's very clean. It's nice. I got the internet. The internet works, which is fantastic.
That's good. Did the guy bring the drill that goes all the way through the wall?
No. The better part is no. As you said that, I was thinking about that horrible scene in. Was it Body Double?
A Body Double.
Yeah, Jesus. No, neither of those things happened. No, but when they got here, he was like, yeah, no, they didn't have to do that. They just hook it up like this. And I was like, you fucking
You were like,
bastards.
God, motherfuckers. So that was like when I moved to Florida and I was going to school, and like almost immediately shit was going wrong in our apartment as soon as we moved in. And the most egregious thing was the air conditioner stopped working because like our water heater like broke and flooded the place below us. And so they had to come in and like replace that and fix it. And then as a result of that, they like broke our air conditioner. And for like a year, like a solid year in fucking Florida, I kept telling them, I was like, managers, this thing is broken. I need somebody to fix it. And they never fixed it. And then the management company switched hands and it became a new company. And they sent somebody over like immediately to fix it. And he goes in and he goes, oh shit, this thing's unplugged. Yeah. So my air conditioner was just unplugged the whole time. I love it. I love that shit.
And you actually don't need that in Florida, I'm told.
No. It's not very hot, especially in the summer.
You should have gotten one of those big fan boats. That's what you should have done.
Just riding around solving crimes on the Everglades.
Yep. So just whipping your sunglasses off, your mirrored sunglasses.
Yeah, with a Michael Mann's production and Jan Hammer.
Yep.
Soundtrack. Yeah, it'd be the shit. So it's hard to explain to someone who's never had the experience what a trip to the video store was like back in the day. The shelves were choked with absolutely bizarre crap, made on tiny budgets, completely divorced from any recognizable reality, and man, it was the best. And we intend to talk about every one of them. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod. Dave's over there at That Werewolf. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of fun. We have a good time. Yeah, people are really enjoying the latest of our What to Watch double feature challenge thing that we've been doing. It's real fun. I'm also on TikTok. God help me if you do that sort of thing. Just search for us by name over there. It's more of that shit.
Yeah, just Google 99 cent rental TikTok dances. It'll bring it up.
I got the best moves, the freshest moves.
Yep.
I got that Riz, as my kids like to say.
God,
why the fuck did I just say that? I don't know. I'm such an idiot.
So stupid.
If you don't know, we have another show called Bring Me the Axe on the weeks when 99 Cent Rental is off. Our latest episode covering the Universal classic Bride of Frankenstein is out now, and we'll be back next week with a look at the stone cold 80s classic Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. You can also contact us directly at 99centrentalpod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a cheesy movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the old business. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search us by name. Subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, get to it. It's fun. It's a good time. And it helps us. And if you listen on YouTube, do us a favor. Give the episode a like. Leave a comment. We do so love hearing from you guys. You're fun. I like you guys. I just want to get all that out of the way right at the top of the show because I'm going to give you a little taste of what we're talking about tonight. Here's a taste.
Her name is Angel. She's unlike any high school student you've ever met.
Are you having difficulty making friends?
I'm on top of the honors list.
There's more to life than getting straight A's.
Her only friends are on the streets. Her only chance is on her own.
You're young, attractive, healthy. You're swimming around in a toilet bowl.
I was alone.
Where's your mom, Angel?
One day I came home from school and she was gone. Just that note, $100 bill. I just put on some sexy clothes and high heels and went out and made a living.
Everything in life has a price on it, Angel. Somewhere down the line, you're gonna have to pay.
It's my life.
Angel, her two worlds are about to collide.
Remind me never to get murdered.
Angel, it's her choice, her chance, and her life.
Ooh,
God.
boy, that's a scummy movie.
God, spicy trailer, man. It is no wonder this movie was such a hit. God damn.
That really makes. I would like to see that movie.
It kind of buries the lead.
Yeah,
Doesn't really give you any sort of sense of what's happening in the plot, because there is a story to this movie, and that trailer doesn't really tell you what's going on. But man, what a fucking action-packed trailer! Just hits.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we're doing Angel tonight from 1984. This movie, this is definitely one that I discovered on television when I was like 12. This ran on Channel 56 for certain.
That would make sense
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, because they would run anything, and the only shit that they would ever really cut out was nudity.
And there isn't
Otherwise-
much as exploitation movies go. There's not much exploitation in this movie.
No, this is a really, like, it's definitely exploiting some shit, but like it's a very unusual movie because it doesn't ever really see the thing that I really like about it, and I think that really kind of carries it through, and I think makes it kind of enduring because it's a weird, like, low level sleeper cult hit. Like, people do like this movie. Like, I know
I do.
Yeah,
I'm one of those people.
I love it tremendously. But like BJ Colangelo is a big, like, I think she's championed this one for a really long time. It's a really, really fun movie, dare I say.
You know what it reminds me of? It's like at 10 to midnight, but without the weirdness.
I've had the same exact thought. I'm like, as I'm watching it, because just, we did 10 to midnight not that long ago, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, the vibe is very, very similar, but it's not near. It doesn't have that, like, unhinged canon quality.
Yeah.
But like, it still has this, like, simmering, grimy quality to it the whole way through. Yeah, it's fucking wonderful, and I am very glad that we're going to talk about it. Shall we do some facts here?
We must.
We must, because this is how we do. The year was 1984, year of our Lord.
Yes.
So here's some other movies that were released that year. The Lady Tarzan movie Sheena came out in 1984.
Not good.
Nope. Supergirl came out in 1984.
Notoriously not good.
Unbelievably bad, and a weird cast. That one's got Peter O'Toole and Faye Dunaway, who neither of them really seem to know what they got themselves into. 1984 also brought us The Ice Pirates. Really, really
Similarly
trashy,
not good.
really, really trashy.
Is that
Star
Robert
Wars
Urich in that movie?
Yeah. Yep. Let's see.
That was their attempt to make Robert Urich a star.
Yeah. Yep. Firestarter came out in 84. 84 was a big year for Stephen King projects.
That's because that was the year he made the year after he made the deal with De Laurentiis.
Yeah. Yeah, because Children of the Corn came out the same year.
Yep.
And closing it out, rounding the whole thing out, 1984, David Lynch's Dune came out in 1984.
Definitely not good.
I like that movie quite a bit, actually.
You know who didn't like it? David Lynch.
Yeah.
Quite famously.
Yeah, I don't have it anymore. I used to have like a steelbook DVD of it, and that one came with the famous Alan Smithy version.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So our cast and crew is headed up by a director by the name of Robert Vincent O'Neill.
A guy who sounds like he never knew what the hell he was doing.
You know, I have this. So on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray that I have, there is an interview with him that is just the most meandering shit.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it at 1.5 speed because I was like, what the fuck is this guy even talking about?
He spends, first of all, I swear to God, it's like, the interview is as long as the movie. Or at least it feels as long as the movie. And like,
it's not. It's only a half an hour long, but it felt interminable.
2/3 of it is him just talking about lenses.
Yeah.
Good.
But like every time he'd be like, "Do you talk about the lens or you talk about the camera?" And he'd be like, "Well, I really don't know what I'm talking about. I've never got to use one of those."
So he started out as a set dresser and a production designer. He worked on Easy Rider before taking the director's chair. Exploitation is more or less his bread and butter, and the seedy underbelly of Los Angeles was where he was most at home. Prior to this, O'Neill caught people's attention with the Wings Hauser cult picture Vice Squad, which we should do at some point.
I watched that, I think, last year, maybe a year before. It is trash.
Well, yeah, but it's good trash. It's tasty trash, which I think is just as scuzzy as Angel, but also it features women defending themselves against predatory men and queer characters with fascinating character arcs.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So our cast is headed up by Donna Wilkes.
Wah, wah, wah. What a fucking boring actor she is. I only know Donna Wilkes from one other movie. She's the girl in Jaws 2 who gets like trapped in the boat when her boyfriend gets eaten, and she just spends the whole time shrieking at the top of her lungs, and then she won't get out of the boat when they finally find her. That's the only thing I know her from. It's because basically that's the only other thing she's been in beyond a couple of TV things, because she's not very good.
Yeah, she's just not in much. So yeah, like I said, she starts in Jaws 2. She's Kinski's daughter in that weird cannon slasher Schizoid.
Oh, that's right. That movie is terrible.
Yeah, it is.
Like even by my standards, which are pretty low.
Yeah. However, this was her career-defining role. If anything, she's known best for this one and a quick run as a recurring role on Days of Our Lives. She ended up ending that run to do this movie. What a mistake that turned out to be. But I think she's great in this.
I think she does this role pretty well, but she's a little bit wooden. There's not a lot there.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of, I should give her a lot more credit because it is an absurd role. It is deeply silly and pretty stupid. In that, like, she's supposed to be like this sexy little girl, which is just kind of gross on its face. And it's like, how do you even play that seriously?
Well, I know. I was going to say, that is the thing that really kind of...
Well, Brooke Shields did it, I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thing that really kind of ultimately propels this movie to success, unfortunately, is she's a 23-year-old woman playing a 15-year-old prostitute. And I think a lot of dudes went to this movie thinking they were going to see this character naked. Spoiler, you don't.
Gross.
But yeah, like that's the thing. Like, because there's scenes in that trailer of her like taking her skirt off and shit like that. And it's just kind of like, but yeah, shit, them's the 80s, I guess.
Yeah, there's a couple moments in this where my notes are just yuck.
Yeah. So she actually does a lot of groundwork for this role, actually hanging out with Hollywood sex workers and vice cops to understand what it was all about.
I have a big problem with that because that is also exploitation.
Yeah. But also, the thing that really kind of makes it hard for her is she is expected to sort of tread water in the presence of Susan Tyrrell.
Which is impossible because she is a goddamn lunatic and she is an amazing character in this movie.
I love her in this. But also, she has to contend with Dick Shawn, who is swinging from the rafters in this one.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, so speaking of Dick Shawn, he's best known for his work in the 60s for like real wild madcap comedies like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And he's also in The Producers. He plays LSD, the guy who gets cast as Hitler in Springtime for Hitler.
He's also the Snow Miser.
Yeah. And he did a ton of TV, appearing on 38 episodes of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Yep. And he did a good deal of like stage work on Broadway. He's in
a movie called Young Warriors that's really, really terrible, but the soundtrack is awesome.
I think I know that. That's the one with the poster of the guy on the motorcycle with like the gun, the girl. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And then rounding out our cast, we got Cliff Gorman, probably best known for his work in The Boys in the Band. Mm-hmm. He was in the original production on the play as well as in the movie. And he also worked a bit with Bob Fosse on all that jazz and in a stage play about Lenny Bruce, where he actually played Lenny Bruce.
Coincidentally called Lenny.
Yeah. And he has a look about him that makes him like natural to play gangsters and cops, which is what he does here. He plays a cop.
Among this cast, there is a great deal of gravitas that they're bringing to this absolutely garbage movie. For fuck's sake, Susan Tyrrell, 10 years earlier, was nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
Cliff Gorman, I believe, is a Tony winner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a remarkably, I don't want to say star-studded cast, but like they're
recognizable people.
They're recognizable.
You know who they are.
But like accomplished is what I want to say, really. It's like these are not like your usual sort of like scuzzy like exploitation movie actors.
But they are weirdo character actors.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Susan Tyrrell, she may have started out, I think she did sort of start out, I don't want to say normal, but you know what I mean. And she took a weird, hard turn at some point, and she was just like, you know who I'm going to be? I'm going to be the one who plays all the kooky lady characters. And boy, does she ever, because she's the one who uttered one of my least favorite lines / favorite lines of any movie ever. I'm your girlfriend now, Billy.
Yeah. She kind of, her vibe is like, she's like somebody who like hit her head in a car accident or like got struck by lightning or something, because she's just so fucking strange. This is her second appearance on this podcast, going all the way back to episode number 2, Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker.
Technically, that's another podcast.
Huh?
Technically, that's another podcast.
That's a different pod, but yeah.
Let's be honest. It's the same.
It's all the same
show.
shit, man. It's the same format. It's just different movies.
Yeah, she plays weirdos in absolutely everything. She's a good actor, but she's such a fucking strange lady, and she always looks really weird and everything. Like, obviously, the first thing I remember seeing her in was Crybaby. Probably Crybaby, or maybe Forbidden Zone, where she looks extremely strange. That is when she was dating Hervé Villachez at the time.
Yep.
And I texted you today to tell you that I learned that she at one point was in a relationship with Candy Darling.
Which is crazy.
That is wild.
Not terribly unexpected. You told me that and I was like, that makes sense.
I didn't see that one coming. But, I mean, gosh.
Jesus Christ. Hey. Do what you do. Love who you love. That's what I want to say. So we got some taglines for this one.
And man, they are trashy.
Yep. The one that everybody that's on all the posters is high school honor student by day, Hollywood hooker by night.
Salacious.
Yep.
Tells the story.
I love that word. That's a perfect word.
Salacious?
Salacious. That's definitely the word to use for this one.
Yep.
And then there's her two worlds are about to collide. It's her choice, her chance, her life.
Yeah, that's less alluring.
Nope. And then there's one that was listed on IMDb, but I could not find it anywhere. But I left it in here because it's hilarious.
Is it toilet bowl?
You're young, attractive, and healthy, and swimming in a toilet bowl.
So I saw a couple print ads that had this on it, but they also have the high school honor student hooker line.
Yeah. Because that's the central. That's really what they want you to know. Yeah.
But I mean, the third one, the toilet bowl one, that's the one that really kind of tells the story. They're young, attractive, and healthy, and swimming in a toilet bowl, and also there's a murderer.
There's a killer on the loose. Yep. So this movie was produced on a budget of around $2 million, and then it ends up bringing in $20 million before it even hits video. But it hardly made a dent in the box office numbers upon release. It debuts at number 6 and made its money back on release, but then kind of kicked around theaters for the next several months. But the whole time it stays in the top 10, the box office top 10 for like months before kind of.
But it also came out at a weird time though, because it comes out in January where there's like fuck all coming out.
Yeah, so it comes out in January, and then ultimately what ends up happening is it just kind of gets crushed under the weight of summer 1984, which is like Gremlins and Ghostbusters and Purple Rain. You name it. Yeah, just crazy shit. So this was released the same year by New Line Cinema that they did Children. They put Children of the Corn out. That was supposed
produced
to be
by the same person.
What?
Same guy produced it.
No. Yeah. Borchers, right?
Yeah. Who also wrote Vamp.
Vamp. Yeah. Refer to our Vamp episode. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so they put out Children of the Corn sort of riding high on that Stephen King shit, and they expected it to be sort of the killer. And while Children of the Corn did quite well, Angel was the biggest earner of the year for New Line. That's something.
Isn't this New World?
Oh shit. You might be right.
New World, because Borchers became the president of programming or something like that at New World, and he brought this movie with him.
Okay, so yeah, I'm wrong on that. I said New Line, it's New World. So the original script was called Hollywood Star. When it ended up in the hands of producer Don Borchers, he took it to New World Pictures when he took over as head of production. The script was originally about a girl in Los Angeles who was abandoned by her father and then turned to sex work to make ends meet at the same time that a killer is making short work of the working girls while wearing a Santa suit. And then the story deviates when she inevitably unmasks the killer and discovers that it's her father.
I still think that is a movie that we need and deserve.
I know if we ever hit that podcast money, I'm definitely pitching that. We're repitching that one to Hollywood. I'm taking that.
That's your millionaire remake.
Yep. That's my my Rob Zombie dream project. Like the movie I've always wanted to make is the one about the hooker whose father is killing people in a Santa costume.
Well, because I was like, where is this fucking movie coming out of? Because all exploitation movies are obviously exploiting something. Like, what is the context for this? And then I remembered this is kind of coming off of that like late 70s into the mid to late 70s into the 80s, that like teenage danger era where like,
oh yeah,
there was a ton of fucking TV movies like Sarah T, Portrait of an Alcoholic, Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Runaway, shit like that. Or stuff like Pretty Baby. What's the one about the teenage prostitutes, or like Born Innocent?
I know that the Bruno Mattei ripoff is called Hannah D, but I don't remember what the name of the actual like super popular one that he was ripping off is called.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. It is fucking slimy as hell, and it's a TV movie. Like these were a lot of them were TV movies, but it's that like kind of moral panic bullshit where it's like, oh my God, the kids are out of control and look what's happening. And, and obviously in the TV ones, there's a kind of heavy moralizing where they kind of come back to this one does not have any of that. And that's great. But I was like, it is so weird that like they're taking that and sort of blending it with this like police procedural thriller vibe.
Yeah.
And there was not a lot of that happened, but it is such a strange mix.
It definitely is. That, and you touched on something just now that I think is the thing that I really like about this movie is it never seems to make any sort of moral judgment of its characters.
Nope.
And as a matter of fact, it seems to like all of the like it truly, these like O'Neill likes these characters and also wants you to like them as well.
And they are. I think they're all. I mean, of all of them, fucking Angel, whatever, Molly or whatever her name is, she's sort of the least likable of them. And there's nothing unlikable about her. She's just a little bit of a dud compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
Who are kind of these big characters.
Yeah.
But it also has this weird, like, flashy. There was something about the 80s and Hollywood, like LA culture.
Yeah.
That I think it had to do with MTV. That people got real hip to like LA and the Sunset Strip and Hollywood Boulevard, and shit gets like real grimy and sleazy, but also sexy in this like flashy way.
It does, because it's right around this time, because like usually in the years leading up to this, when you wanted to make a grimy exploitation movie that was like crime in the city, it was always New York. It's always Manhattan.
Yeah, you made Driller Killer.
But at this point, like all of a sudden, and honestly, it's probably a little of that where like music videos are starting to sort of inform the way kind of people look at Los Angeles, because like all the bands were from LA and all of the production companies were in LA. So it just kind of like made budget sense to shoot your movies in Los Angeles. But like,
there's also, you can see that influence on this movie, that video, like music video style.
Yeah.
Like that style of filming.
Yeah.
Is very heavily influenced this film.
Because, when we get into it, like my usual sort of like scene by scene notes are a little are a little frantic this time because like they pack a shitload into like every scene. There's a million cuts. They try to like show you what everybody's doing in different parts of the city all at the same time.
Yeah, the camera moves like the whole fucking time.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like I think was this the same year that Savage Streets came out?
No, I think Savage Street's a little bit later, but it's around the same time. Savage Street's probably like 84, 85. So yeah, about the same time.
Right.
Maybe 86.
But yeah, but at the same time as this is happening, like the Sunset Strip rock scene is like starting to happen as well. Mm-hmm. And so like all of those like hard rock music videos, like Motley Crue's getting real big at this time. So like the shift, the kind of the zeitgeist kind of like looks westward. And I am fascinated by this shit. Because
I think there's something kind of uniquely 80s about that, though. And I there is an opulence and a kind of acquisitiveness about 80s culture that's very much like this is the pinnacle of achievement, or this is the pinnacle of fame and wealth. It is Hollywood, California. Now, obviously, that had been true for a long time, but I don't think people really thought of it quite that way. Yeah. But once you have a lot of fucking money, you've got these cable channels, and all of a sudden, shit is like, everything is like in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is like, you know, big movie culture and drug culture. Like, we are focusing back on California, but in a way that is very aspirational, I think, in a sleazy way, though. It's very much like if every movie about New York City took place in Times Square.
Yeah. You know what it is it seems like everybody kind of like focuses their attention on the dream factory. Like, you know, that's the whole thing. But at the same time, everybody seems to sort of have this understanding that the wheels of that machine are sort of greased with the bodies of failure. And so like at the same time as like, it's this like sexy happening place with the neon lights and the fucking big sign in the hills and like pastel colors and like expensive cars and shit. There is this like seamy underbelly that is equally as interesting. And probably like still, just even a little sexier because it's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, that is all over this fucking movie because as much as the stakes of this film should be extremely dire, even without a serial killer, they treat it like a goddamn summer camp where they're just like, everybody's a kooky character and everyone's having fun. There's no heroin addiction. There's no homelessness. They kind of hint at shit like that. But for the most part, it's like, isn't this wacky? It's like camp.
Yeah. Like, you too could walk the streets at night and be an honor roll student.
Yeah. And I think that there's, when I learn like, oh, Donna Wilkes spent time with sex workers or with, at like halfway houses. And it's like, bitch, get the fuck out of there. They don't have time for your bullshit. But at the same time, it's like, you clearly missed the big message, which is like, this life is terrible for everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody wins. Everyone is being abused and exploited. Like, it's just fucking terrible. And they leave that whole part of it out, which again feels very 80s to me.
Yeah. They graze upon it for a moment, and then
they're
just
like, it could be a problem, but you know what? They're fine.
Yeah.
Like every woman, they're just like, I've had sex with hundreds of men, and it's like, yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be 15.
Well, no, she does say that with like regretfully. Or in a way that's like, this is the reality of my life, like that's not her sort of like putting it out there like, ain't this great?
But there is that vibe of like, woo, solving crimes, sexy crime time. But also it occurred to me too, because these movies were, obviously they made a little bit of money in the US, but for the most part, they're for international markets. Like that's where all the fucking money came from. That's where the funding came from. And if you're not going to set something in New York, what's the other thing that international markets understand at the time?
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's definitely a sort of cultural shorthand to that. Yeah.
So once I kind of put all those pieces together, I was like, oh, I guess it kind of makes more sense that like, you want to glamorize Hollywood. You don't want it to be like, oh, this is actually really fucking terrible. Yeah. And the last piece of it that I kind of occurred to me was like, this is also at a time where like, Richard Ramirez is like running amok, and like there's so much violence and brutality in Los Angeles at the time. I mean, at the time, but
yeah,
you know
this
what I mean.
movie is released like right at the beginning of his like killing spree.
And you can tell that is also like he feels the killer in this movie feels like a kind of Ramirez character.
Yeah, because where he's definitely Ted Bundy in 10 to Midnight. In this one, the killer is a mad dog. He's fucking like a miserable animal. He doesn't speak.
But a real crafty one.
Yep. There are 3 sequels to this movie. New Line understandably rushed a sequel into production that year, featuring most of the same crew.
Again. Stop crediting another company.
Oh God, I'm sorry. Yeah, New World. They featuring most of the same crew, surviving characters, with the exception of Donna Wilkes, who passed and was replaced by Betsy Russell, who most horror fans know from the Saw sequels. It's not terrible.
Not this horror fan.
No, it's not terrible. But it doesn't really come close to the sort of sleazy character piece that this one is. It's followed up a few years later with Angel 3, which just sucks. And then, oddly, in the early 90s, a 4th movie is made with barely any connection to the preceding movies and was intended as a backdoor pilot for a TV series that never happened. I've never seen it. I'm sure it's awful.
It was directed by Tom DeSimone, though. And I appreciate Tom DeSimone. He's a wonderful man. I think he's dead now, but he directed a lot of very early gay pornography. He also directed, what's the one with Wendy O. Williams? Reform Schoolgirls?
Reform Schoolgirls, yeah.
He made that. He made Hell Night. So he made porn, and like a lot of people, he made porn and horror. And he was the one who made that movie.
Real Renaissance man.
He was a very nice guy.
Yeah. You got it. Oh, that's right. You interviewed him, didn't you?
I did a couple times.
That's awesome. Yeah. Were there any reviews of this movie?
Oh boy, there sure were. People did not think it was very good.
I'm shocked, actually.
So let's see. So the Boston Globe, it says, although Donna Wilkes does a credible job of standing on the corner of Hollywood and Highland, she stumbles when the part calls for something more. And again, I'm going to have to agree with Michael Blowen from the Boston Globe. There is the Kevin Thomas Los Angeles Times. All but devoid of sex and surprisingly restrained in its depiction of violence, it is simply a routine exploitation picture and utterly unconvincing at that. Now, I agree with most of that, but there is something kind of compelling about this movie, even though it fails as both of those things. It's not really thrilling. It's definitely not sexy. And yet, I think it's the characters that make it a likable movie.
That's it. That is it, because there is like the struggle, the conflict really doesn't pick up. Like they dip a toe in it, but it really doesn't pick up until about halfway through the movie. And then up to that point, we are just dining on scenes of just characters in this.
Yeah, it's slacker, but everyone is a sex worker.
Yeah. Yeah, so like it's really not there. There really isn't a story to this movie until like the back 9. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the lead up to it is still very entertaining.
Yeah, and my last one. This was my favorite. This is Vincent Canby, stuffy Vincent Canby.
Bring it on.
From the New York Times. It says, "This is only January 13th." But as movie vehicles go, Angel will almost certainly turn out to be one of the top sleaze-mobiles of 1984. Now, I think he means that as a bad thing. I would interpret that as a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if I read that, I'd be like, all right, I'm listening.
Like, go on, Vincent Canby. Oh, and he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the consensus is the movie is trash. But yeah, like it's even worse than trash. The consensus is more like, well, that was a movie.
That's too bad, because like there is a lot to like about it.
There is a charm to this film that is, I think, elevates it much higher than it probably ought to be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a reason that Vinegar Syndrome picked it up and like put out a box set of it.
Well, they're not very picky, though. let's be honest.
That's a good looking disc, though. Like that's definitely you put it on and you realize like, oh shit, like I'm definitely watching a Vinegar Syndrome like restoration here. It's a very quality 4K for a movie that doesn't really necessarily deserve that sort of treatment. God bless them.
Yeah.
All right. Should we just dive into this? Should we do this?
I don't see why not.
No, maybe it's inevitable, I suppose. So we open on the hazy hills of Los Angeles.
Golden hour in Los Angeles.
Molly leaves her house, makes her way downtown, walking fast, faces past. She goes down Hollywood Boulevard to catch the bus to get to school.
Yeah, she's got a real Christian Sally Field energy.
Right, because it's like knee socks and saddle shoes and
It
fucking.
really is. She looks like Cindy Brady, but like older Cindy Brady. When you were like, oh, I hated you when you were younger, and I hate you more now.
Yeah. She got the pigtails going on. Like they're really leaning into this shit.
It is, and it's like I know why you're doing this, and it's gross, but also she looks silly. Because no one else, she finally does get to school, and nobody else is dressed that way. Everyone else is like, it's 1983, 84. They're dressed like it's 1983, 84. She's dressed like she's going to like a Christian prep school in like the 60s.
Yeah. But the thing is also her classmates are definitely teenager actors in an 80s movie where like their casting agency has a headshot that says like age 35 can play, 18.
And I would disagree with that.
Cause there's like most of her classmates, they look old enough to,
they're easily 29 years old.
Yeah. So she goes to North Oaks Prep School and goes to class where they talk about fucking King Lear.
Oh, you're going to skip right over Wayne?
No, because Wayne comes next.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's going back to her locker, and nerdy Wayne, who is
nerd alert,
even nerdy, hardcore nerd, nerdier than anybody in Revenge of the Nerds.
He may as well be pushing up his glasses that are held together with tape. With his nose running, like he is a garbage pail kid, is what he is. Like he's a stereotype to the nth degree.
Yeah. It's like his hair is like a series of like ginger Brillo pads and shit. It's crazy. He's just like one of the most ridiculous characters.
Yeah, it's like, what if older Pete from Pete and Pete was like a disgusting stereotype?
Yeah, he awkwardly asks her out, and she politely shuts him down. Not the last time we're going to see Wayne. Next time
my note says, nice guys finish last. Wayne, you should do something shitty and disgusting later in this movie.
Yeah, put a pin in that, because Wayne's coming back a little later on. So now later at home, we see her getting ready to go out.
Yeah. My note says, meanwhile, in the video for Slaughters, she's only 17. Angel applies her costume for the night.
That was Winger, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Still, gross song. So we see her getting ready to go out, putting on sexy makeup, doing her hair and all that. And then we cut to the concrete jungle of Hollywood Boulevard by night.
And it is banging.
It's busy as fuck. I don't know. So like I was in Los Angeles about a year ago, and I'll tell you what, man, Hollywood Boulevard. I was there at night, day and night. It's a fucking freak show. It's crazy as hell. Like there's tourists everywhere, but there's also like it's just like that where like every 100 feet there's some busker or a person like dancing or somebody doing like magic tricks and shit like that. Like
now, see, that's what I remembered it as. But O'Neill says in that interview, he was like, we had to hire tons of people because at like 9 o'clock at night, Hollywood Boulevard basically just shuts down. Like all the stores close, everything closes, and whatever's left is basically like sex workers, people trying to like make a quick buck. Okay. And he was like, we had to hire tons of extras and like just to pack the streets because there weren't enough people there.
Shit, because well, fucking A. It was like 40 years.
This was also 1984. So,
yeah, so like maybe things have changed. But
I think it was considerably less safe at that point.
Yeah, like when I was there, it was like fucking going to Times Square. Like there's a gimmick every 10 minutes. Somebody trying to get like $10 out of you, like every 10 feet. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's what I fucking remember. There's like here's some of the characters we see. There's a dude riding one of those penny farthings around. There's a cowboy actor with a real big personality named Kit Carson who's signing autographs. There's Hare Krishnas, who are still kind of a big thing in the early 80s there.
Yeah, I mean, this is every 80s stereotype and cliche all in one place.
Yep. We got fire eaters. There's a Charlie Chaplin clown dude doing yo-yo tricks. There's a weird dude in a cat costume doing some kind of dance. And all the while, Molly walks the streets looking for dates.
Yeah, it has a real like Motley Crue video montage.
It's girls,
very
girls,
very 80s.
all the
Yeah,
way.
it's like, or like the scene where Axl Rose gets off the bus in like the Welcome to the Jungle video.
Yeah, all the way. So Kit Carson is a character who's going to keep coming back. He's one of the big deal characters.
Yeah, Rory Calhoun. Is it a wig? Sure is.
Yep. Holy shit. Kit Carson, played, as he said, by a guy named Rory Calhoun, who was an actual B-Western star from back in the day. He constantly name checks a guy named Tom Mix, who is widely considered to be the first Western movie star from the silent era. He's responsible for making the entire genre viable. He died in 1940, so Rory Calhoun there, Kit Carson, he'd have to have been really young to have been his stunt double, as he claims.
Rory Calhoun was a child prisoner.
What?
He was, I can't remember the name of the penitentiary. It was a juvenile reform school in California. He was one of the, same place that Merle Haggard was locked up as a kid.
Oh, no shit.
Roy Calhoun also spent, I think, quite a bit of time there.
Goddamn.
There was a horrible murder there in the 50s. Didn't have anything to do with either one of them, but
Okay.
that's why I know about it. But Roy Calhoun was also in Motel Hell.
Yeah.
Among lots of other things. But
Yeah.
he is Farmer whatever, Farmer Fred or whatever the fuck his name is.
Yep. So Molly gets picked up by a real slob of a dude who asks her name, and she tells him Angel. And we find out that he's a cop, so he has him drop her off because she's real streetwise, right?
Yeah, she's a savvy lady of the night. I love the fact that they actually call them lady of the night in this.
Yep.
And I was like, I don't think that's a thing that people would actually like. That seems like something that Republicans would call them.
Yeah. So yeah, he drops her off, and she gets picked up by her friend, the transvestite May.
Oh, Lord. Okay. May is a character. There's the aesthetic is Tony Curtis in Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
That's what we're going for. Like, this is a man who has not worn a lot of women's clothing, nor has he ever worn women's shoes, because he's very clearly not comfortable walking in them.
Yeah. That must have been the sort of like production cue for that character. Is that Some Like It Hot character? Because that is a perfect description.
The whole movie is so very clearly written by, and I think generally created by straight white men.
Oh, sure,
like,
yeah.
In the most classic of ways. It's like, what's a transvestite like? They're like, oh, well, you've seen Some Like It Hot, right? It's that,
Yeah.
but like real likable and whimsical.
Yep.
And the character of May is wonderful, very likable. Dick Shawn does a great job, but it is so like, this is one of those moments where like you could have hired a trans actor. There weren't many of them at the time, but like you could have hired at least a gay person or a drag performer. There were lots of those at the time.
Yeah.
You could have done that for authenticity. This is clumsy as fuck.
I know. I get this. You're asking a lot of 1984 because a couple of years later, like they're still like, what is Fisher Stevens does like brown face in Short Circuit and shit. Like
That's true. Soul Man. So
fucking Soul Man comes out the next year. It's not good. It's not a good time.
But it's such a clunky, awful, like the clothing, like you've clearly never even met a trans person. And it's also unclear whether or not this is a trans character. It could just be like, they don't really focus that long. They don't say much about the character's sexuality.
They don't give you too much about May's background.
It's sort of implied that he's gay and a cross-dresser. That's all we really know. And those things that does not necessarily mean that is a trans character.
No. But it took me a really long time to sort of figure out like where May kind of fits into the whole milieu. And I think she's also a sex worker.
Yes. That is kind of the vibe that I get. And I'm guessing that the reason they never really go in depth with any of this, I mean, for one thing, they probably correctly assumed that their audience, they're generally wouldn't really care or want to know any more about that. Like they don't want to know more about gay men. They don't want to know more about like trans prostitutes. That's just not their thing. But also like, thank God they didn't, because that would have,
it would have been so bad. It would have been so
and
ugly.
it would have undermined the whole thing. Like, because I think the way this character and the Susan Tyrrell character are handled in this are noteworthy and remarkable for a bunch of different reasons. But like, if they had gone any deeper, it would have been like, you would have undone all of that goodwill you just earned with me real fucking quick.
Right, because they're really walking a tightrope with these characters, and it wouldn't have taken much to just become pure caricature, right?
Yeah. And I mean, they're already basically that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, this character, it very aesthetically Tony Curtis, but also aesthetically Dorothy from the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Like the outfits they put this, like no self-respecting drag performer, trans woman, or even just cross-dressing man. It looks like someone took a football player and put them in their grandmother's dress.
Yeah.
It is, as Nina Garcia on Project Runway would say, very mumsy. It's very madame. And it is definitely madame, because it is like this fucking frilly, I believe frock is probably the appropriate word.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So in all this chaos, some cops talk. There's a beat cop and Lieutenant Andrews, who lets us know that a psycho is on the loose.
Mm-hmm. Well, here, we know a couple things about him. Here's what we know. He's a necro, probably bisexual.
Yep.
That's about it. I love how those two things go together.
So it's just them kind of riffing on criminal profiling, which was newfangled at the time.
Yeah, I mean, he fucks dead people and sometimes dudes.
What more do you need to know?
One naturally leads to the other.
Yeah, what more do you need to know to catch this guy? Meanwhile, speaking of psycho killers, above the city in a dusty hotel room, said psycho does a Travis Bickle impression, doing sit-ups on a DIY sit-up bench. And it is a real like shitbox, like 1-bedroom apartment. It's fucking crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is Richard Ramirez's apartment in Psychoville. Like it is, this is the Cecil Hotel, one room, hanging bulb is the only source of light. That and the tons of neon outside.
Right. Like the city streets are leaking into his room, and sort of like that's what illuminates him. He's like a reflection of the city's filth. Yeah. So elsewhere in a Boulevard diner, May and Molly enjoy a snack with some of the Hollywood working girls. There's a lot of joking around. One of the girls muses about getting out of the life, and May cracks some jokes, which upsets her. As it would happen, the psycho on the loose has killed 2 of their friends just recently. Also, Angel's mother is sick, apparently.
Sure.
Which I'm kind of bummed that the trailer gives that detail away about her mother. That kills, because that's a real sort of a neat little reveal.
Oh, I feel like that reveal is real made for TV.
Right. Like you should probably see it coming a mile away, but still. So when they break up and go back to work, one of Angel's friends, Crystal, goes down to see Yo-Yo, the Charlie Chaplin street clown guy that she has a crush on.
And so Crystal's real simple.
Yeah.
Like she appreciates the simple thing. Yo-yos, spinning tops.
Spinning
This is how we know she's going to get serial killed, because she's just too dumb to live.
Right. Because what is it? He says like, hey, let me show you my new trick. And he pulls out a top and spins it, puts it on her hand. And she is just so fucking delighted by a fucking toy for infants.
Yeah, he may as well just jingled keys in front of her face when she just starts clapping wildly. She's such a dummy that you're just like, oh, you're the next one to die.
Yeah, she's a little bit like Morgan from Sorority House.
Yeah.
Fucking A. So they flirt a little. Then she walks off, unaware that the psycho is following her closely. A little ways up the road, he propositions her, and she takes him to the bungalow where she does.
Well, he doesn't even quite proposition her. He just sort of like sidles up to her and gets real close. I'm like, look, I don't know how to pick up a prostitute. I've never done it. I don't think I could. but I don't think you're supposed to just invade their personal space and be like, I think you know why I'm here. It's very presumptuous. Because you know what? What if she's just a lady checking out some clothes and you're like, well, you must be a prostitute.
It is a bit of a logical jump.
Yeah. But I saw you playing with that top back there, and you seem too dumb to make a living elsewise.
Yeah. So they go to the bungalow where she does her work, but he suddenly grabs her, drags her into an alley, pulling his knife on her, and he stabs her to death.
It is kind of a rough scene because this movie really pulls its punches when it comes to violence, but every once in a while there's this like scene of weird cruelty, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it definitely is. So now back, Angel is heading home for the night. Apparently Kit Carson and her father were tight at one time. And through some chatter.
Yeah, because she rolls up on there, like Kit Carson's doing his thing, like he's, the gun show, cowboy gun show. And she sort of like inserts herself into his performance. And I thought, is this 15-year-old hooker part of the show?
I know. It's like, you turn around and be like, listen, Angel, I am working.
Like, I got to make a fucking $1, bitch. Get out. You and your lady friend are not part of this.
Yeah, because she comes up, puts her finger guns in his back. Good God.
And then he's just like, all right, we got to get you home, little lady. It's past midnight. And I thought, if it's past midnight, why were you just talking to two 10-year-old boys? I was going to
say, there's like two small children that he's like working his magic on. I'm like, how late? Is everybody a fucking degenerate in this movie?
Yes. The answer is yes. And thank God
right
for that.
Yeah. So through some chatter, we learn that her father is dead. So back at the bungalow,
or is he?
Yeah. The killer washes the blood off of his hands and returns to the bedroom where Crystal's body is laying on the bed, all covered up to her chin.
Yeah, my note says, "Oh no, is he gonna have sex with that dead lady?"
He's definitely gonna have sex with that.
He's gonna have sex with that dead lady because I know two things about this guy. One, he's definitely a necro. Two, probably bisexual.
Yep. Takes her hand, caresses his face with it before pulling the covers aside and steadying up to undo his pants.
Yikes.
Yep.
I mean, thank God, though, because they don't deliver much in this. At least they're going to deliver some really shocking moments, though, where you're like, no.
Yeah,
except unfortunately,
shock you a little bit.
Unfortunately, they're all around like really disgusting sex. Like all the shit you don't want to see.
Yeah. So when Molly arrives home, she and May are called into Solly's office to see her latest painting. Solly is the landlord of this apartment.
So Solly was supposed to be a male character, apparently, and they hired Susan Tyrrell to play the character and didn't change a single thing in the script, which under any other circumstance would not have worked.
No.
And yet she owns it and definitely runs with it.
Yeah, and she is characteristically nuts. She's got these painted, first of all, she got painted on eyebrows.
But she didn't shave her actual eyebrows.
Shave her regular eyebrows.
So it looks like she just has two sets of eyebrows, one of them going in a very odd angle.
And the painted on ones like stretch back practically to her ears. And she's also in possession of what you might call Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, she's also Chekhov's dyke is what she is, because here's another moment where they're like, okay, so this was going to be a man. We're not creative enough to change the script. What do? She's going to be a lesbian. Well, what's a lesbian? Wow. Wow, what these guys think a lesbian is. And look, there are all kinds of people out there. Queerness comes in all different forms, and God bless every single one of them. But this is a stereotype that, again, borders on offensive, but it is so 80s. It's very like, well, you got two ladies. One of them's obviously the man and the other's the woman. So this one's got to be the man. And it's like, oh, no, you're confused. The whole point is that there isn't a man.
Yeah.
Because she is.
The thing is I guarantee that she showed up. She did her own makeup. She came in whatever.
Oh, yeah, my note says, those eyebrows were her idea. Everything about this fucking character was her idea.
Her wardrobe was whatever she put on and showed up to the set in the morning.
And she's wearing like an old timey director palazzo pants. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, she's got those. What do you call them? Jodhpurs.
Yes, that's what they are.
Yeah. Good God.
Covered in paint because she's a painter.
Yep. As we meet her, she's painting. She's got her new piece, "Fruit with Gun." Mm-hmm. I think is what it's called.
I'd buy that.
Yeah.
But the weird thing about these characters, what we were saying before, is that they are both of these are played by, Susan Tyrrell, I guess maybe not straight, but they're ostensibly played by straight people, and or at least people that were presumed to be straight. But the characters themselves are ridiculous stereotypes that border a little bit on offensive, but there's such an obvious fondness for these characters, and they're played with a kind of dignity and kind of there's tenderness between them all that they don't come across feeling like a joke. They're not presented in a mean way, and there's no judgment. The filmmakers are not saying, "Look at these freaks." I mean, they are a little bit saying, "Look at these freaks," but in sort of like don't freaks make the world a better place?
I would say that the kind of the sort of the extra shit, the part that makes it a little bit offensive, I think it just kind of comes from the sort of the ignorance of O'Neill. But it's not an ignorance born out of hate. It's just a guy who doesn't fucking know any better.
Yeah, you didn't know.
He's doing his best. It's just not quite enough.
It's very much like, oh no, I like those people. It's that kind of thing where you're like, what you mean those people? It's that kind of like, your ignorance is itself a little bit offensive and hurtful, but it's forgivable because you're trying.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. It's like, you do like these characters. It's sort of like in, Butcher Baker, where there are other gay characters and they're played with this dignity. Like, whoever made that movie, they don't know any gay people, or they did, but they didn't realize it, or they didn't think much about it. But like, they're like, well, they're just people like everybody else, right? So I'm going to write them that way, I guess. And it's like, that is as progressive as you're going to get.
Yeah.
And it just happens to work because you're right. The writer and director have such an obvious fondness for these characters that you're like, we want you to like them too. Yeah. Because that's the whole point of horror and thrillers and all this stuff. Is like, the movie doesn't have any fucking stakes. That's for damn sure. So we got to give you something that you're going to like feel something throughout the movie. And I think they kind of really invest most of that in these two characters, the character of May, the character of Solly, and a little bit less so the Rory Calhoun, the Kit Carson character. Yeah. But still, you still like that character. Those are the anchor in this movie. Cliff Gorman a little bit, but he's such a kind of a throwaway cop, like white guy.
Yeah, he's the straight guy in the movie,
And you're kind of like, fine, whatever. Which is a shame because he actually is a very good actor. If you've ever seen Boys in the Band, he's very good in that.
Oh yeah. Like, he was a very accomplished stage actor. Like this, he's no slouch. It's just when he needed to pick up a paycheck, he'd show up on fucking, any given police procedure.
Yeah, he's on Hill Street Blues for 3 episodes if he needs money. That kind of thing.
Or like The Sopranos or something like that.
But that is the one thing that the reviews, they pan the movie for the most part, and they say, Wilkes is sort of wooden and she doesn't really know what to do. But they do say that Susan Tyrrell and Dick Shawn and to a lesser extent Rory Calhoun, they're really the ones that hold this movie together. They make it interesting to watch. And I 100% agree with that because they're the 3 that you like.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's the thing that I've been trying to sort of zero in on as I talk about this. I think the thing that makes this movie so likable is that it has heart, and in a way that contemporary movies did not. Like, I think in the hands of anybody else, these characters would be degenerate freaks, and you would not give a shit about them whatsoever because they would have been painted in just the darkest of shades. Yep. But they're just not. They're not here. This movie it wants you to like these characters, and it does a good job of portraying them. And like all of them, that's why this movie fucking works. It has heart where other movies like I name checked Savage Streets. That movie,
it's a terrible movie.
Is also incredibly fucking sleazy, but it's also mean and nasty. And this movie is not that at all. It's just.
No, and it tries to be every now and then, but it's almost like the people making it are too good.
They're thwarting that.
And so there are these kind of B-plot moments where you're like, I don't give a shit about any of this. I really don't care much about Angel. Like, I mean, she's fine. I like her, but she's more just sort of like the bridge between these other three characters.
Yeah,
they kind of give you this like
the central point of gravity that like everything else in this movie is orbiting around. Like, you gotta have her, but she's definitely not the reason that I want to watch the movie. Right.
No, and so last night I watched, I think I told you, I watched that movie Roadkill, that Canadian movie.
Yeah.
And it's the guy who made Hardcore Logo.
Okay.
So he was sort of part of that new Canadian cinema, but also the same thing happened in the US too, where you get people like Todd Solondz and you get, who's the one that made Slacker and Before Sunrise?
Oh, Richard Linklater.
Yeah. It's like you get this, this style of filmmaking that comes out where it's a little bit like that mumblecore. It's a little like kitchen sink realness kind of thing, like where the stories are a little boring, and the whole point is all the shit that's like the stuff that's happening in the background, or all the characters. And I really loved this movie Roadkill. And the story itself is a little bit kooky, but you don't really give a shit about that because there's not a lot happening in the plot. It's all the weird characters she meets along the way that make the movie so interesting and so compelling. And I really loved it. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. Is like, there's a plot to this movie. It's fucking stupid. And it's the thing that like this is going to get people into theaters because either they think it's sexy, which is gross because she's supposed to be 15, or like they're there for like the thriller aspect, which is like barely part of the story, and it's fucking stupid and it's kind of over before it even starts.
Yeah.
Like they don't flesh any of that out. You're there because of these kooky characters. So in that way, it's sort of ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And it's doing something that most 80s movies wouldn't have bothered to do, which is make these queer weirdos really lovable, like kooky characters. And it has sort of a Wizard of Oz-y kind of feel to it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like they're the fucking Tin Woodsman and the
they are there to guide this young woman through this horrible ordeal. I mean, I think we're all kind of supposed to believe, like, in the end, because the whole point is she is a child prostitute in order to get through this fancy school so she can go on to do better things, which is like, that is never the case. It's sort of like mostly myth about like homeless people are people who have just fallen on bad times. Like, that's not really how that happens, but sure, for the purposes of this feel-good story, yeah, why not? We'll go with that. We'll just assume that like after we weather this horrible storm, she gets into Harvard.
We're being a little charitable with the feel-good story part, but I'll let it ride. So let's see. In the morning, Molly is delivering breakfast to her mother for some reason. When Solly shows up to collect the rent, we don't see her mother, but...
Well, I think she's making breakfast, and then Solly shows up.
Oh, okay. Because it's like on a
to collect the rent, and
shit.
she sort of turns quickly and...
Okay, I get that. Because it's like she's bringing a tray to that bedroom, and I'm like, is this like a fucking Norman Bates thing going on?
Oh,
here?
you don't do that? You don't prepare breakfast for yourself, lay it out on a nice tray, take it to the bedroom where most people eat. Or if you're like me, you eat over the sink like a goddamn slob.
Yeah. So, we don't see her mother.
That's right. Sorry, fellas, I'm spoken for.
Yeah, we don't see her mother, but she wrote a check and sent Solly her regards. So back at the killer's pad, he eagerly sucks a raw egg right from the shell.
Scene. Again, this is like they had to the movie they wanted to make, but then the people at the studio and the distributor were like, okay, but you got to put a killer in it. You said there was a killer in the movie, and they were like, right, killer, okay.
Okay, so in that interview with O'Neill on the Vinegar Syndrome disc, he talks about this scene. So when this actor whose name I'm completely blanking on.
I think it's John Deal.
Okay. When he came in to not interview for the part, but audition, they did, because that character doesn't have any dialogue, so they didn't give him any sides to read, and so his whole thing was he had to kind of come in and sort of express Psycho. And so what he fucking did was he brought in like a picture of a woman and he put it on the wall with tape, and then he produced a knife and an egg. So it's this scene in the movie, and they loved this.
You haven't actually said what the scene is yet, though.
So he takes the knife and he like cracks the top of the egg, and then ferociously sucks the raw egg from the eggshell, while like staring at this photo on the wall of a woman with a child, presumably him and his mother.
And he is dressed like Little Lord Fauntleroy. Like, he looks ridiculous.
Getting more and more fucking frantic until all at once he just like crushes the egg against his face, and it's just like egg and shit like dripping down his face. That was his audition, and they were like, holy shit, we're putting that in the movie.
I mean, it was probably the most interesting thing they saw that day, but it is so ridiculous because, again, it's that idea of like, well, let's see, he's a necro, he's got to be bisexual, right? He's got to be a sexual deviant, and let's see, mother obsession. What else do crazy serial killers do? The egg thing? They do the egg thing. It's this idea of like, well, he's got to be an outright lunatic. Because they didn't quite know yet what an actual serial killer looked like.
Under no circumstances is this guy a functional member of society.
No, he's a raving lunatic.
I don't even know where he's getting the money to pay for this room. Like, it's super unclear what this guy does, apart from murder prostitutes.
And quite efficiently. I mean, he is out there just day after day.
Oh, yeah.
Killing ladies of the night.
Yep. Just no, murder never sleeps.
And it's such a ridiculous thing to be like, well, he's obviously a raging lunatic. Yeah. How about he smashes an egg on his face? Yeah. That seems like something crazy people will do. You know, when they're not fucking dead people.
Yep.
Or men.
So at school, 3 lowlife jocks headed up by football star Rick.
By 30-year-old Rick.
Yeah, Rick. Jesus fucking Christ. They set up a situation where Rick asks Molly out, something like a football. They throw a football at him, and he catches it. And he's like, hey, baby, how about that? And she's like, get the fuck away from me.
It's such a trope. Like, again, you know the movie they want to make, but they have to put all this other shit in here. And this Rick jock subplot, it's so fucking boring, for one thing, and it's so tropey. And here's the part I never understand about these movies. Like, this is from every fucking 80s movie. He's the villain in every 80s movie, basically.
Yeah.
That involves high
I'm
school
surprised
students.
he doesn't have like a fucking sweater tied around his neck, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, he is Blair from Pretty in Pink
yeah.
if he was a rapist. It's that.
Yep. And like, Wayne notwithstanding, the culmination of this little B plot is definitely the most upsetting part of the movie to me.
Yes, it is. So here's my question about that, because this will unfold as the movie goes forward. But I don't live in a world where people like this exist. I mean, I know that I do, obviously, but I don't think I've ever been cognizant of their presence. So to me, the idea that teenagers or people who are portraying teenagers would be like cruel and rapey is so foreign to me, because I see this shit in movies and I think, are people really like this? Like, are teenagers really like this? And then I have notes that are like, I have a hard time believing that teenagers are like this. But then I also have notes just below that are like, oh, right, remember the Duke lacrosse team? Like, yes, there are. And I just find this stuff so shocking, because it's like, how can teenagers be this fucking cruel and awful?
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah. I've been, like, this week, I kind of caught wind of a YouTuber named Jay Aubrey, who does these kind of like long-form expose of other YouTubers, like very high-profile YouTubers who also happen to be like sociopaths. And like the top earners on the platform, or for one reason or another, have eventually been sort of like kicked off and been reduced to using like Kick or Rumble, or those ones where you can like do drugs on stream and commit sex crimes. There are like
God bless the internet.
I know, fucking amen. It's. I want to do a whole series about it.
You've exposed us for exactly what we are.
YouTube is decadent and depraved. It's a fucking nightmare. So like when I see these guys, it's like, oh yeah. I just watched a video about like 6 guys who are exactly these three guys who are, 80s dirtbag dudes, including the sort of de facto cackling hyena guy with way too much energy.
Yeah, and like I don't mean to take us down this awful tangent, but like this is a trope in 80s movies, and it's a trope in the movies we watch specifically. Like these characters show up so often, and I think about like when I was in high school, I don't remember people being like this, and obviously people have always been like this. There's people have always been cruel, but like I don't live in a world where people exist like this. Like I live in a city. I wander around a lot. Like I go various places. I see all kinds of people, but like it just never occurs to me that like, oh right, there is a large segment of the population that is exactly like this. And part of the reason why we're in the situation that we are in now socially and politically is because people politely ask for them to not be like this. And it is just like, I don't know why, but like every time it catches me off guard because it feels like such a reach, which I think says a lot more about me than it does about Hollywood.
You know what it is it's just that you surround yourself with decent people. And so...
I guess, yeah.
You're living in a bubble, man.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, fuck these guys. It's too bad that she doesn't kill them. Anyways, Molly then meets up with her guidance counselor who or maybe she's the principal. I think she's just
a teacher.
Or maybe
she's like her English teacher or whatever. The Betty Buckley from Carrie character.
In my notes, I'm going to alternately call her a principal and a guidance counselor because fuck it, who cares? But,
she's what's the teacher's name in Carrie? She's that.
Yeah,
the Betty Buckley one.
Yeah, she's she worries that Molly isn't making friends at the school as she's not taking part of any of the extracurricular activities. Molly would, but you see her mother had a stroke and she's very sick and needs her to take care of her.
Also, she's a teenage prostitute.
That too, a.k.a. Sex work.
And she doesn't need these fucking slimy friends who are teenagers because she's got that drag queen. She's got that old cowboy. Who else she got? Well, she's had Crystal. She's got the dumb one, but she's dead now.
Right, she's dead now. She's got another hooker friend. She got that yo-yo guy.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, at the bungalow, Lieutenant Andrews works the scene. The coroners pack up several bags into a single body bag, which is a detail that I think is so fucking awesome.
It is. And the only thing that this scene is missing is that like sloppy coroner eating a sandwich.
or somebody with a chalk outline on the floor that's like the head's over here and the legs are over there. And So Yo-Yo sits nearby crying, and he holds the bloody top that he gave her, implying that he took crime scene evidence.
It does, and then he says, "What's wrong with Crystal?" And my note says, "She was too dumb to live."
Yep. So growing mob of the local hookers show up to demand answers. Yeah.
And there's lots of like, harump, harump, harump. Oh, you're not protecting us. Harump, 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 mumble, mumble, mumble. And then Rory Calhoun's character yells, "It looks like Custer's last stand with the fucking Indians in there." My note says, "Yikes."
Without the Indians. Yep.
I mean, Custer had it coming, though. She didn't.
Yep. So by night, Molly walks the boulevard with another one of the girls from the diner when said girl suddenly looks up, sees the killer trying to get her attention. She breaks off for a little work time, not knowing that it'll be her last.
And look, I mean, I feel like he is the perfect Reagan-era Republican serial killer. Like, he is just out there day after day, killing ladies, getting it done.
He's on that grind. Yeah, he's not quite as handsome as Warren in 10 to Midnight, but he's getting there.
I mean, he is a toned body, one might say.
Yep. So Molly gets picked up by an annoying John, played by Peter Jason from They Live, among other movies. And this motherfucker.
This is a part that I literally have a note that says, "This is fucking disgusting."
Yeah. He takes her to the bungalow where they work, and then as he's like real rude and shitty with her, and he says, "You better be 14, baby, or else I'll throw you back in for being too old."
That's why it says it's fucking disgusting. This guy sucks.
Yep. So she sends him to the bathroom to get cleaned up, but not long after, he comes backing out, terrified. Angel goes to check and finds the body of her friend all stabbed up in there. And that's when she, like, falls against the wall, like, sobbing and shit. Meanwhile, back at his apartment, the killer ferociously scrubs himself down by
Richard Ramirez has to scrub all that sin off in the giant wash tub that he has in his apartment for some reason.
Kid with a loofah.
But he's like standing in like a big, like a copper tub.
Yeah, just pouring water over himself. Gotta
like,
get
hey,
that.
you wanna know how sleazy this movie is? It has male nudity in it. That's how sleazy it is.
Yeah. So at the police station, Lieutenant Andrews tries to get some details about the killer from Molly, but she's got nothing. Then he gives her a hard time about her line of work.
So I feel like this aspect, as much as I want to praise them for the queerness part of the story, this is the part of the story where it really falls flat, and I think it says a lot about the era that it's made in, because he's essentially saying to her, you don't have to do this. Like, the implication here is that you are out here doing this not because it's fun necessarily, but like, you know, you couldn't find a job, so you decided to do this. Like, this is the part that it's a very conservative worldview.
Yeah. So this is the one. I think this is the one exemption to my sort of claim that the movie makes no moral judgment, because it definitely does here.
Yes. Or I don't know that it makes a moral judgment as much as it is a profound misunderstanding of the circumstances of these people.
Because what she does say is like, if I like, do you think I enjoy doing this? If I could make this kind of money doing anything else, I would do that. But like, she can't. She's a fucking teenager. And the other thing being, like, what we're going to eventually learn is that, like, she's just on her own. And so, like, she kind of has this moment where she's like, if I go down to the courts, they're just going to put me in the foster care system. And that's probably going to fucking suck, too. So, you know. Right.
So there's a kind of vague awareness that the circumstances of people who do these types of things, that they are dire or that they are undesirable. But there's also still this very kind of conservative imaginary that believes that, well, you could have done something different. You're just not trying hard enough. It's that idea that's like, this wouldn't happen if you wouldn't be out there doing this work. Just go home and stay there. And it's like, okay, well, who's going to pay her fucking rent?
I was going to say, because he keeps saying that. He's like, go home, don't hit the streets. And it's like, how's she going to pay the fucking rent, dude?
This is the part that, you know, when she says, well, I did all this sort of research and I hung out with sex workers and I hung out in, halfway houses. And so this is something, do you remember that book, Nickel and Dimed?
Yeah.
So she wrote that book and she was like, well, I also went out and I worked this sort of service work job for 2 months. And it's like, yeah, bitch, you worked it for 2 fucking months and you could have walked away at any minute you wanted to. There were never stakes for you. You have no idea what these people live with every single day. So as much as they're like, well, we went out and we talked to all these people and we really got an understanding. Fuck you. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You think you did, and that's the problem, because you think that these people could do exactly what you did, which is walk away whenever the fuck you wanted to. And it's like, that's why you don't understand it, because you don't understand that they can't walk away. That's why they do this work.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit weird that this film that feels pretty liberal then hits you with this like, yeah, well, these ladies are just out here because they can't find a secretarial job. Like, nobody wants to do this job. Nobody. They're out there because they have to. And most of them probably have drug problems or, domestic violence situations. Like, it just sort of skips over that in a way that is very cavalier and bizarre.
Yeah, there's even a moment where he's like, do you have a pimp? And she's like, you think I'm stupid? And like, you're definitely an outlier in that respect.
Yeah.
Like, most of these ladies are out here just being fucking manipulated and abused by a guy who just takes all their fucking money. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like this we constantly live in this world where it's either one end of the spectrum or the other. It's like nonstop child sex trafficking, or they think it's like this kind of weird sex worker summer camp.
Yeah. So
now with weird gun-toting lesbians.
yeah, and an indeterminate amount of time later, we cut to Kit holding some snivelly lawyer at gunpoint. He's the executor of his estate and is trying to have him put in a home. Molly shows up and suggests that they go to the morgue to claim Lana's body, lest whatever happens to unclaimed bodies happen.
You skipped over the part where they cut back. It's like a very brief street scene, and we see like it's either the first or second time we see a person of color, one of the only people of color, and he's singing old spiritual songs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Horrible. So the Rory Calhoun, Kit Carson moment in the diner where he's got the sort of sniveling guy at gunpoint. This is another weird moment that they sort of breeze past, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, was there more to this in the script? Because
it feels like there was probably a subplot that got cut, but they couldn't cut around this scene, and so they just kind of left it in, and it just kind of hangs and goes nowhere.
Right, because the implication is that he either has some sort of dementia or he's getting very, like, it's all of the people I know are dead and I will soon be dead. And it's a moment of like gravity and reality that I'm like, that could have been really interesting. Instead, you spin us off in these other dumb directions that I really don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
But it's another one of those weird moments where it's like, hey, you should have done more with that guy. The one in the wig with the gun. I like him.
So
how many times have I said that?
So the next day, Andrews tails Molly on her way to school. And at school, we get some gratuitous T&A in the girls' locker room. And Rick tries again to get Molly's attention, but she slams the locker door on his hand. Hey-oh.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the killer is in his overlit apartment doing Travis Bickle shit. This time doing barbell curls with cinder blocks instead of plates.
Yeah.
Then he hits the streets again before dropping into a porno theater.
Oh, you also the part in the school, that's where we have the first requisite girls' locker room scene.
Yeah, that's why I just breezed past it. That's just
so we might not get our sandwich eating pathologist, but we do get titties in the locker room.
Yep. You're definitely going to get a little of that. Like they can't let you walk away from this movie without a little bit of nudity.
That's what I'm saying. They're like, the studio was like, look, you said this was an exploitation movie, and he was like, oh, fine. And then she's in the locker room for some reason, I guess.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back to the drag queen.
Yeah. So, the cops now are out on the street showing this guy's police sketch because she gave a police sketch. Molly did that based on what she saw. And they show it to the porno theater manager who only moments ago told the killer to get his boots off the seat in front of him.
I believe this is the guy who wrote the movie.
O'Neill wrote the movie.
And he wrote it with someone else.
Oh, okay.
And it's the guy playing the usher is the other guy.
Oh, gotcha.
John,
So they go in and they arrest him and they take him in for a lineup. So
in a scene that takes us in a very unexpected direction.
I know. So Molly can't be sure which guy he is, and she misidentifies one of the guys in the lineup. But
yeah, that's because they're doing the lineup pretty much in the dark.
Yeah,
they all have really terrible underlighting, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm. So as they're leaving, she notices the spur on one of his boots and points him out. At the same time, the killer grabs a cop's gun and just starts shooting the place up, making a run for it.
You know what this is? You know what this whole scene is? They had no idea how to get themselves out of this scene.
Yeah. So yeah, he just shooting cops all the way out, and then they lose him on the street. And when after like this character is gone, they just kind of like throw their hands to the side and they're like, shit, I guess he got
do.
away.
And Cliff Gorman's character says something like, that's the second time that's happened to me. Second time?
Yeah, buddy, might be time to review your career path.
I want to say what the hell is going on with the LAPD, but I think we know.
Yep. So Andrews drives Molly home and then barges into her apartment, insisting that he meet her mother.
This is another moment, though, where we get a weird, before they go into the apartment, because they sit in the car a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's like smoking a cigarette. And this is another moment where something is implied to be wrong with him. Like he has like Parkinson's or something. Like they're focusing. So he lights a cigarette.
Oh, yeah.
And they're focusing very heavily on like his shaking.
He's shaking because he's all rattled from the fucking shootout at the police station.
Is that all? Because this is where it's like the second time that's happened to me.
Yeah. So this guy Andrews, he knows everything about her now, and he wants to know what her deal is. So he knocks on the bedroom door for her mother, gets no answer. So he busts in. He finds the room completely empty. You see, because there is no mother.
Now I have many questions about this scene.
About this room?
Why does she have a weird death room in her house?
Because like the rest of her house is like it's lived in and it's decorated and shit.
I mean, presumably she had a mother when she moved into this apartment, right?
Yeah.
And so, did the mother sleep in an empty bedroom? Because it still has a gross old soiled mattress.
Yep.
It still has a dresser or some sort of bureau. But it has nothing else in there. The rest of the apartment is decorated.
Yeah, it's like
and
a
this room is like,
bare wood
what did you
floor
sell
with, like-
off the rest of the furniture in there except the bed?
Yeah, it's like bare wood floor. The walls are like smoke colored and stained and shit, and the rest of her apartment is just like perfectly nice. Like this, it looks like where they kept the mutant twin of the good child in the movie, almost like that treehouse of horror with the evil Bart in the attic.
We have 3 children, Homer. Yeah, 3 nosy children.
I feel like it's been a while since we put a Simpsons reference down.
Oh, there you go. There's your one. Yeah, it has that like vibe of where they keep the sister Zelda in Pet Cemetery. Like it's the room is just it is more depressing than anything you've seen, and this is about a child prostitute.
So now we get the rundown about Molly. Now, see. Her father didn't die as we've been led to believe. He just walked out on them 9 years ago and hasn't been heard from since. And then,
gee, wasn't he just the best?
Yeah, and then her mother just up and bailed on her when she found another guy. So
she left for $100.
Yeah, Molly comes home, found the place empty, and we learn that she's been working on the street since she was 12.
So she reads the note. Well, she hands the note to Cliff Gorman, who reads the note as she sort of like mouths along, like as to suggest that she has read this note and knows it by heart.
Yeah.
And the very end of the note, which I think is kind of hilarious, is, "Well, take care of yourself, Mom."
Yep.
Just very casual sign off. Just I think what's interesting about this scene, beyond the obvious big reveals, is that the character of the cop, of Cliff Gorman, thinks nothing of barging into this young woman's home when no one else is around, invading her space, being like aggressively alone with her.
Yeah.
In a way that's like, she is constantly saying, "You need to leave, please get out of here, get out of here." And he does not. And it's like, here's what's wrong with America. Men are upset that they can't do shit like this anymore.
Yeah. No, you know what I think is, and we'll save the ending until we get there, but I think that what they've been doing is they've been kind of like towing this line that he's this kind of like patron character, father figure for her. And I think that there was probably an original ending where he ends up taking care of her or something like that, because that's what happens in Avenging Angel, the sequel to this, is he's like her foster father or something like that.
Ugh.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
No. So she thinks
take care of yourself, Mom.
She thinks her dad is coming back for her, and that's why she's been trying to make it work ever since, instead of reporting her situation and going into foster care.
Which is very similar to the plot of Little Girl Who Lived Down the Lane.
Yeah. That's a fucking good movie, man.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So back at his nasty
Martin
apartment.
Sheen, creepy as shit in that movie.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So back at his nasty apartment, the killer gets to work cutting off all his hair while Molly...
he's having a real "would you fuck me, I'd fuck me" moment in front of that mirror.
Yeah. God, it just needs that Goodbye Horses to nail the whole thing home. The killer gets to work cutting off all his hair while Molly goes back out on the street, meeting up with May at a drive-in where she appears to pay way too much for a hamburger, but it turns out that she's buying a .22 pistol with the burger.
Mm-hmm.
So Kit brings her...
That's America.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Get a Saturday night special and In-N-Out. Fucking A. So Kit brings her to his place, a sprawling but mostly empty industrial space. And then
she says, "This is where you live? This is really cool." It's like, this looks like a serial killer's hideout. This is not cool.
It looks like a set from Hostel is what it looks like, except that he's got a bed on one side. Yep. And then he proceeds to give her extremely bad shooting advice. Pretend the pistol is your finger, and then you just point, and then proceeds to shoot from the hip, just blasting all the target dummies.
With what sounds like laser guns.
Yep. That night, Rick and his stupid posse drive the boulevard, spot Angel on the street. So they creep up on her and jump out, just snatching her right off the street before driving.
And a bunch of things about this moment are really strange because she never reads prostitute. I mean, I know that they try to like dress her up to be like, oh, she's a child prostitute. Look at her. She looks like a little schoolgirl. You wouldn't look at her and be like, oh, she's obviously a prostitute. So they basically just see a classmate on the side of the road and they're like, oh my God, she's a hooker. And it's like, well, that's a bit of a leap, I think.
Right. Because definitely, like, none of her friends also sort of like do the like hooker dress up thing. They just look like ordinary women.
Right. And then they just literally kidnap her off of the street.
Yeah. They drive off to some dark alley with plans on raping her.
Mm-hmm. And one of them says, show us your
whisker biscuit.
And
might rival I'm your girlfriend now for like most upsetting line.
Yeah, I am somehow repulsed and indescribably delighted by that phrase.
Yeah. So yeah, like she's really upset by this. She convinces them that she's got condoms in her bag, but
that whole scene is so bizarre because they're like, we're not going to use those. And it's like, this is real. Like the tone of this moment is very like, it's like weirdly playful. Like, oh, she's going to get one over on the high school bully. It's like the stakes of this are insane. They're talking about raping, like gang raping her. Mm-hmm. And the tone of the movie is like,
yeah, the tonal shift here is extremely aggressive. Like this scene is really, really aggressive. And so, but like, yeah, she, reaches into her bag and she pulls out the gun and she holds that fucking cackling hyena dumbass, with the gun to his head. Rick challenges her, like, you're not going to use that. And she fucking puts a round through the windshield, telling them all to get out. And when they do, we see that Rick is pissed his pants.
But you don't get the impression like he is maintaining that machismo throughout this entire scene. But it's like, so that doesn't match him pissing his pants. This whole scene is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
I hate it because it's really gross and upsetting.
Yeah.
But also, like, it just tonally does not match the rest of the movie. I think she should have just killed all three of them.
Oh, I would have loved it if she just fucking mowed them all down.
Or at least shot the hyena one. You got to shoot the least valuable one, and he's definitely that.
Oh, he's a low value man for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. So now the next day there's like some more locker room TNA.
Mm-hmm. And those girls, they are playful.
They're
splashing each other.
Just love showering together.
Like you do when you're in the locker room. You're splashing your friends, carrying on.
Yep. It's definitely not at all awkward and weird. So but now all the girls are whispering that she's a hooker. So the secret's out now.
Now, and I feel like if someone when I was in high school was like, oh, you hear that so-and-so's a hooker, I would have been like, yeah, I doubt that. I doubt that she is. Yeah. Now, in this case, it would have been true, but you still, when someone says that, you're like, you don't mean literally though, right?
Yeah, that's a little hard to believe. 15-year-old Molly, the girl who, straight A's, takes a bus to school.
And listen, I went to school like you with tons of people from Hampton Beach. It would have been plausible.
Yeah. Rick also rats Molly out to the principal, guidance counselor, teacher lady who opens her locker and finds the gun with her belongings.
It's a real like yada yada moment where they're like, and then something happens. Rick, back to the boulevard.
Yeah, no. But for now Wayne comes running back and he asks her out again. But this time he thrusts a handful of cash into her hand and she runs off crying.
$23.
It's so, this part is like, this part makes me shrivel up inside. Like it's just so fucking terrible.
Wayne, we are to understand that Wayne is a classic nerd, standard nerd. And But it still has that like nice guys finish last type of thing where it's like, well, I brought you the money. And it's like, first of all, read a fucking room, Wayne, you idiot. Also, just be nice to her. You don't have to throw money at her just because she's a sex worker. Yeah. Fucking creep.
Yeah, but I mean, they're really trying to sort of illustrate it that like her life is now ruined.
And not even enough money. But that's the problem with this scene is that we never gave a shit about this part of her life anyway. Like, they make this part of her life seem like the burden. Whereas the fun part is the sexy, exciting nighttime part. Yeah. This is the part where you're just like, oh, she's back at school with these fucking dirtbags. Great.
Yeah.
Like, they're all terrible. The girls are awful. The guys are rapey. Like, the teacher's a little bit nice, but whatever. Like, I just don't give a shit. And so, like, when it's like, well, now her life's ruined, I'm like, I don't give a shit about that part of her life anyway.
I know. I mean, like,
that part seemed boring and terrible. Well, that's probably why I got kicked out of high school. But still.
Yeah, the school is definitely like really kind of everybody at the school is like predatory and dangerous. It's like she's just like it's way less threatening to just take her chances on the fucking street.
It's like she goes to the school and lean on me. Like you just go to public school. You'll be better off. They're monsters, but they're not rich monsters.
No. So she goes running back to Andrews, who told her that sooner or later there would be a cost that she'd have to pay. And then they have a moment there.
Well, they kind of have a moment. It is the most awkward, uncomfortable moment I've ever seen. Like, he's just sort of like, there, patting her on the head.
Yeah. So, back at Molly's apartments, May plays cribbage with Solly. And what is cribbage? How the fuck do you play cribbage?
I don't. My friend Andrea and I used to play cribbage. I do not know how to play it anymore, though. I could not tell you a single thing about it.
God damn. So they have a real wild, characteristically insane Susan Tyrrell moment, arguing
where they are just like, this is the part that's a little bit rough because it's like, okay, neither one of you are known for being queer people, so easy on the fucking homophobic language.
Arguing over who cheated at cribbage,
and then she says, "Eat my puff, will you?" And I thought, well, that's going on the list.
Yep.
Love that one.
Meanwhile, Molly's principal shows up looking for Molly's mom, and Solly like stalls and she tries to put her off. May gets an idea while Solly argues with the woman about going up to see Molly's mother, and then like the fucking principal, teacher, guidance counselor lady like gets real tough.
I don't give a shit. Like, you're ruining the fun part of the movie now, lady. Yep. Get out of here. Get your chocolate out of my peanut butter. I hate you.
So when the principal.
What?
So the chocolate for the peanut. That's very funny. When the principal goes up to Molly's place, she's intercepted at the door by May, pretending to be Molly's mother. And it doesn't hold up for a second, of course, and then the truth comes out.
But don't worry, the teacher's real cool with it.
Yep.
She really is delighted by May, real taken by the charm, and it's just like, you know what? I should report this to the authorities for God's sake. But you know, it sounds like you got this under control. Strange cross-dressing man whom I just met.
Yeah. So the killer has disguised himself as a Hare Krishna, goes sneaking around Molly's place.
This is where they're like, wrap it up, fellas.
Yep. Now, Lieutenant Andrews' partner sees him going into the apartment and chases him. And then the principal and May have sort of come to some sort of agreement about what to do about Molly to get her off the street. And so
that's the part where she's just like, you clearly have this under control. I await your word, strange man.
Yep. So as she leaves and walks down the hall to leave, the camera pans over. We see the partner in a phone booth dead.
The only other person of color.
Yep. And so as May is about to leave, she opens the door to find the killer there with his knife out, waiting, and they fight. And May's being real sassy the whole time.
Yeah, just defending herself with zingers left and right.
I fucking love it. Whips out the fake tits and does like an Eddie Cantor impression.
Yeah, it is so strange. And I think what this scene is doing is that sort of like, well, yeah, I know he's wearing a dress, but he's still a man, right? And it's kind of like, okay, I didn't really need that, but again, I'm going to let it slide because you built up a lot of goodwill. You're running out of it, but...
Yeah. So they brawl. It's like a knockdown, drag out fight in the apartment. They tear the fucking.
That just goes from room to room.
Yup. Just tearing the place to pieces until they crash into Molly's room, bringing the canopy bed down on them, and then in the chaos, the killer stabs May.
Which I think this is artfully done if you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll give it
because
that.
it's all done under a sheet. And it's the death is more suggested than anything else. And this is one of those moments where you're like, oh, not the good one. Why couldn't it have been the teacher?
I know. So,
or literally anyone else.
Yeah. I mean, hey, there's gotta be stakes, you know, you gotta take something away, right?
But that's the problem is we never actually knew these were stakes.
I know.
Because we didn't see this coming.
No, but it is just like a bump. They've built up May as a character that you really like. And so that when she gets killed, it sucks.
It's not quite like when Annie or Linda die in Halloween, but it's like, it's up there. You really like these characters.
Yeah. Sally comes in too late to do anything. They have a real fun character moment before May dies. And Andrews brings Molly home, but is distracted by the dial tone that he hears nearby. He finds his partner dead. Molly goes to her place, finds it all torn up. Then Sally comes out of her room bloody and with bad news. And when Sally is distracted, Angel goes down and grabs Chekhov's gun and hits the streets looking for the killer. And by comparison to the little pistol that she bought at the fucking the burger place, this is like a cannon. It's like a massive pistol.
Yeah, this is whatever.
It's a Colt, like a Colt Python or something.
Whatever he has at in Dirty Harry at the beginning.
Yeah, the Python.
She goes storming down Hollywood Boulevard. Apparently, they didn't have a license, so like a permit to shoot for this. So they basically just had to film her on the fly, storming down the street with a gun in her hand. So I think a lot of those reactions are real.
I would imagine. I know that one of the things that he did, O'Neill did, was he knew what like shooting permits looked like. And so what he would do is he would take, it was like basically a pink sheet of paper, and he would take it and he would fold it and he would put it in his breast pocket so that like when the cops came around, they'd just be like, okay, he's got a permit. And they'd kept fucking going.
Shrewd.
Yeah. Good thinking.
Shrewd.
So, Andrews chases her out. He isn't far behind. He also finds Kit, tells him to keep an eye out for her. So they're all looking for
Quickly deputizes Kit.
Yep. When Angel passes a group of Hare Krishnas, the killer spots her and breaks off. Question, are these Hare Krishnas not paying attention to who's in their little social group there?
They'll be like, who's this new guy?
Yeah.
Who doesn't know any of the words to our fun songs and also looks like someone just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah. He breaks off, starts following her with knife in hand. Now, thankfully, Yo-Yo is nearby, gives her a heads up. And then the killer throws some dude into her, takes off, and she charges after him, just firing wildly into a crowded area.
Well, he also jumps into the back of some guy's car, and the guy basically just like slams on the brakes, grabs him, and chucks him out of the back.
Yeah. A lot of running and very tense music as she chases him around Hollywood and Sunset before running into an alley. And he manages to give her the slip and nearly gets the drop on her in the alley. But Kit comes running in, tries to shoot the killer, but it turns out he's got his blanks loaded into his pistol. And he ends up getting shot for his trouble. Andrews isn't far behind, though, and they chase the killer a little bit more. And then, once again, down a dark alley, Angel charges down, but the killer leaps out and grabs her, shooting Andrews. Angel gets away, and it looks like the killer is about to shoot her and Andrews when in walks Kit, who just fucking blasts the guy with both guns.
Yeah, Rory Calhoun for the win.
Yep. And the killer's dying words is just, it hurts.
But I appreciate this moment because it is said with this sort of like surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's these sort of like disjointed moments of success.
Yeah.
It's one of them. It works.
That all feel like they just sort of happened by accident.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the only line that he says in the movie, and then he dies.
And I love a good inexplicable killer. I love when they don't explain it. Like Black Christmas or Halloween, where it's just like, it's just a crazy person. It doesn't matter why they're doing it. You would never understand anyway.
No.
So you don't need to know who they are or where they're coming from. The fact that they don't know anything about pathology of like psychotic people, psychotic killers is like, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't understand it anyway, so who cares?
It also
he just shows up to kill ladies.
Just gum up the works. It's just, these are unimportant details.
And they already throw a bunch of shit at us that I don't care about in this movie. Like, I don't need that too.
Yeah.
I just know that he is a loon who is out here killing ladies, and he just got cut down by a fake cowboy.
Yep. Triumphant music swells. They all leave the alley together. Fade to black. Roll credits.
I also love that fucking ending because it's like, I like to think she just goes on being a lady of the night. She saves her money and goes to public school.
That's the thing is, I get the feeling that at one time there was a version of the script that had a sort of what you might call a happy ending, where like she ends up, with fucking Lieutenant Andrews as like a father figure, and like she's not hooking anymore, and she's back in school or whatever. This movie instead is like, no, that would be fucking stupid. Like, of course she just goes back to work. The streets are safe again.
Yeah, she's obviously not going back to high school.
No. I fucking I love it when a movie commits, Yep. So yeah, fucking Angel, man. And I love that.
What a strange movie.
They roll credits on that song that they've been playing. You've Got Something Sweet. I don't know who plays it, who performs it, but it is in this. They use
it's the guy who made the guy who did the Craig Stefan. I think is his name. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the only piece of like, it sounds like licensed music. It's a really catchy tune. Also,
you can tell it's like a Go-Go's ripoff. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's a early '80s pop.
It's like it's like a new wave pop thing that they do. I like it. I like it a lot.
It is like sickeningly upbeat and repetitive.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. This is a very strange film.
Agree.
Because it is badly written, badly made, and yet it is charming as hell. And it kind of bangs along pretty quickly. They don't waste a lot of time on much.
No, it's like I said at the beginning. Like, it's very it's like O'Neill knew like that music videos were kind of like the future. And so he gives it that sensibility because it's very snappy. They do a lot in a very small amount of time. They don't give you too much. They don't give you more than you need to know about anybody.
But you get the feeling that all of it happened kind of by accident. Like, this is not good planning. This is not good filmmaking. It's good acting. It's good actors, I should say. That's not really good acting. But it holds together because of those three, that trio of characters. Otherwise, this movie would be insufferable.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's got all of these unresolved plot lines that you don't really give a shit about ever. They don't follow through on any of them. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, nothing in this movie matters ever. You're just like, hey, just give me more of those people. Yeah, I like them. They're fun.
Despite
you can throw in a dead hooker once in a while if you want to. I'm fine with that too.
It succeeds in spite of its like just volume of flaws. Like, this is a movie that's just on the surface and upon reflection, it's just not very good, but it's very enjoyable. Like, I've liked this movie since the moment I saw it.
I've watched it probably 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years, and every single time I'm just like, wait, that is a fun movie.
It's fun, and it shouldn't be because the subject matter is so dire.
But that's the thing is they never lean into anything, so it's just like, these wacky prostitutes out here trying not to get killed again.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is on that interview is I think O'Neill talks about it when he wrote the script. He referenced a writer who I looked up, a guy named Damon Runyon, who was like a reporter in the early part of the 20th century, but he also wrote short stories, and his subjects were always like lowlifes and gangsters and gamblers and shit like that. But he wrote about them with like a lot of warmth for them.
Well, he's sort of like James Cain.
Yeah.
Who wrote like Double Indemnity and Postman Olsen Twice, where it's just like, they like writing about this stuff. So even though they're supposed to be like kind of sleazy, slimy characters, like they like them. It's sort of like Charles Bukowski too.
Yeah.
Like you liked these
they
characters.
They see a very colorful world in a part, in sort of this scenery that like anybody else would sort of turn their fucking nose up with.
Tom Waits.
Tom Waits, yes, writing about hobos.
Kind of like this idea that like the world is populated by all these very strange people, and it's the very strange people that make the world interesting, not the normal 9 to 5 people rushing by on the sidewalk. You don't give a fuck about them. You don't give a fuck about what's going on in high school because it's boring. It's a boring story, and none of those characters are likable. You like the wacky, quirky people. You want to be in that story. You could tell that's the movie they wanted to keep making, but every now and then they were like, oh, right, we have to put in this other shit for whatever reason.
Yeah. It's a movie that has no love for the straight world. Like it recognizes that something interesting is happening on the street, you know?
And I think that's probably why it resonates so much with me. It's just like, that is always who I have been. It's just like, I don't want to be in high school. I don't want to be in an office with people. I want to write true crime and be a fucking weirdo.
I want to hang out with weird people. I want to watch weird fucking movies. I mean, that's where the action is, you know?
And I think that's what makes it, you know, that's what makes this movie successful when it really shouldn't be, because it's poorly made. It's not an American Story.
Yeah,
but it just has a lot going for it. Going back
to his movie Vice Squad, like Vice Squad is almost like a first draft of this movie. I like it, but just because it is excessive in its sleaziness. And that's just an interesting characteristic, but it has none of the heart of this movie. Like this is definitely like what he was trying to do all along, and
that's how you know it was mostly an accident. If you look at the rest of his filmography, you're like, oh, I get it.
Oh yeah, he makes bad movies, man.
Yeah. Not this one.
Nope. This here is a wild fluke. Thank God for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So hey, what's coming up next?
Well, speaking of gross, weird movies, we are heading back into the wilds of Canada with my man, David Cronenberg.
Yep.
And in 2 weeks,
oh God, yes,
we are going to be watching David Cronenberg's probably his most controversial film, definitely one of his most disgusting films, and yet somehow very sexy.
Yep.
We're talking about Crash.
Yep. You will believe that James Spader can fuck a lady's leg wound.
Yep. After fucking Elias Koteas.
Yep. Oh shit, God,
And,
I cannot wait to talk about that.
If I'm not mistaken, we are also not going to be alone for that one. We are bringing in some friends to talk about it.
God, damn
or
that.
a friend.
What freak have we signed up for this fucking movie?
A returning freak.
Yep. So be back here in 1 week when we take on Return of the Living Dead with Bring Me the Axe, and God fucking help us when we do Crash with 99 Cent Rental in 2 weeks.
Yeah.